Chapter 1. Euless and the others were naturally brought to the system world by Dustless. The difference between this world and the previous one was like the difference between heaven and hell. The endless towering mountains extended into the distance without an end, as if they extended to the end of the world. Countless immortal mist drifted halfway up the mountain, and countless white marble palaces could be vaguely seen hidden between the mountains, one after another. It was extremely spectacular. Welcome to my world. Seeing the shocked faces of Euless and the others as if they were country bumpkins, Dustless couldn't help but feel proud. Every girl who entered his territory was so shocked, and Dustless's vanity was quite satisfied. Just pick some palaces that you like. Dustless pointed at the palaces all over the mountains and said extremely arrogantly, "Don't be polite with me, I'm the biggest landlord, the master of this world." The girls didn't stand on ceremony after hearing that and picked some palaces that they liked. But what surprised them was that there were actually people in many palaces, and after asking around, they found out that they were Dustless's confidants. Claudia, Euless, and the others immediately changed their understanding of Dustless. Previously, they didn't think that this guy had the nature of a pervert, at least he had some bottom line, but after seeing those confidants, they could almost form a company. He's simply a human trafficker. Euless and the others complained angrily, but this group of women had deep feelings for Dustless. They loved each other and didn't have any conflicts, otherwise, they would have already made a scene. Dustless stayed in the system world for a few days during this period and tried to create a human with Claudia. Of course, there was a large group of people, and after a few days and nights, he had to leave in a sorry state. Otherwise, he would really be squeezed dry. Even if he was a 10-tailed beast with unlimited physical strength and energy, he couldn't handle a bunch of tigresses. In the blue sky, lazy white clouds floated around. Looking at the sky was exceptionally clear. Damn it, why do I always transmigrate to such a damn place? Dustless looked at the unfamiliar students around him and smiled bitterly. This scene seemed familiar. The last time he had transmigrated, he had also landed in an unfamiliar school. Please wait a moment. Just as Dustless was in a dilemma, a very gentle voice suddenly sounded. Dustless subconsciously looked over and saw a handsome and sunny boy looking at him gently. "Are you a new student?" "Hello, I'm Ebonihue." The handsome boy introduced himself politely. Dustless narrowed his eyes. "Ebonshine? Isn't that the fallen knight? Don't tell me this is." Dustless's eyes lit up as he instantly understood where he was. Cough, cough, cough. Dustless coughed awkwardly, then greeted Ebonihue in a friendly manner. "Excuse me, are you Ebon?" "Actually, I'm a student who just entered the Broken Army Academy. I'm not familiar with the place and got lost." Dustless decisively chose to bluff. Grumble, grumble, at the same time, his stomach grumbled. Dustless blushed slightly and said, "I just arrived and don't know where the cafeteria is, so, why don't you bring me there?" Ebonihue looked at Dustless suspiciously. For some reason, he felt that this person was a little strange. If he was a student of the Broken Army Academy, why didn't he have a uniform? Thinking of this, Ebonihue's heart immediately became alert. "Okay, come with me." The boy showed his signature sunny smile, then took the initiative to lead Dustless away. Seeing this, Dustless followed without hesitation. Transmigrating to this place was quite taxing on his body, and he was really hungry. Along the way, Dustless beat around the bush with Ebonihue, asking a lot of questions about this world. He could finally confirm that this kid in front of him was that protagonist. "That's the cafeteria in front." Ebonihue pointed at the end of the corridor, where there was a closed door. "Thank you." Dustless nodded lightly, then walked over with a smile. He couldn't help but feel strange because the cafeteria in front was too small, more like an office. "Forget it, no matter what, let's fill our stomachs first. We'll talk about the future later." Dustless walked to the door and gently pushed it open, but the scene in front of him stunned him. How was this a cafeteria? It was obviously an office, and there was a woman in a suit sitting in front of the desk, seriously reading some documents. "Who are you?" The woman looked up at Dustless, frowned, and asked, "Strange, you're a student of the Broken Army Academy? Why haven't I seen you before? What's your name? Dustless was speechless. He looked at the woman in front of him and had some impression of her. After thinking for a while, he immediately understood that he had been tricked. Cafeteria, what the F***ck? This woman in front of him was called Shinganji Hino, and this was obviously the chairman's office. Chairman, I felt that this guy was a little suspicious, so I brought him here. Eben Ihue suddenly walked in and pointed at Dustless. Where's the basic trust between people? F***ck, we didn't have any grievances in the past, and we didn't have any grudges recently. I just wanted to make a living, and you actually tricked me like this? Dustless felt like countless crows were flying over his head. He suppressed his anger and wanted to beat someone up, and looked at Eben Ihue with a fake smile. Boy, well done. Just you wait, this is definitely not over. Chapter 2. Even if you don't have IS, I won't go easy on you. Under the control of Cecilia's will, the 4 guns floating around her all aimed at Dustless. A dense barrage of bullets shot out from the muzzles. The barrage of bullets was extremely fast and disappeared with a sound. Boom boom boom. The next moment, Dustless's location was engulfed in flames. The violent explosion made the entire simulation field tremble. Although it was just a barrage of bullets, they were actually made of high-density explosives. After being hit, not only would the flesh be torn open, but the body would also be burned to ashes. Arrogant guy, let's see if you still dare to be so arrogant in front of me, Cecilia. The girl's lips curled into a victorious smile. She hummed proudly and couldn't help but think excitedly, will I become famous in the world because of this? Thinking of this, Cecilia's heart was quite excited, her heartbeat accelerated, and her beautiful face was covered with a layer of blush. In the past few years, Dustless was too famous. The whole world knew of him as the demon instructor. There were even rumors that even Veiled Thousand Winter was personally trained by him. Stupid girl, why is your face so red? Is it because you're in love? The cold voice came from behind. Cecilia immediately shivered. Just as she was about to turn around, she froze. Pa! The crisp sound lingered in her ears for a long time. Cecilia jumped up instantly like a cat whose tail had been stepped on. She turned her head and angrily rebuked, You. How dare you hit my butt? Oh my God, are all men so barbaric in a place like Japan? Other people don't know, but I am barbaric like this. Dustless shrugged nonchalantly and yawned. If you have a problem with it, just give up on the entrance exam. No one will force you. Don't even think about it. Cecilia rejected him fiercely. Give up? No way. Not only did she have to pass the IS entrance exam, she also had to take revenge on Dustless. But then again, how did he dodge my attack? I didn't even see a shadow. Was I too careless? Cecilia frowned, looking at the sea of fire that was still burning. Her eyes were full of confusion. She had clearly hit Dustless just now, but this guy had sneaked behind her and even hit her butt. Thinking of this, Cecilia's anger was ignited. She was ashamed and angry at the same time. You don't understand gentlemanly etiquette. This is my return to you. The 4 cannons floating around Cecilia spread out and aimed at Dustless from different directions. Bang bang bang, with the previous humiliation, Cecilia was now like a barrel of gunpowder, firing with all her might. At this moment, she was also holding a gun that was nearly 2 meters long, and all the bullets were aimed at Dustless. Boom boom boom, the place where Dustless was standing was once again engulfed in boundless flames. A huge black crater was blasted into the ground, and he disappeared along with it. *T, don't tell me he's dead? Realizing that Dustless was nowhere to be found, Cecilia's face turned pale. Defeating an instructor and killing an instructor were 2 completely different problems. Idiot, this kind of spark is still miles away from burning me. The ghostly voice sounded behind her again. Remembering what happened before, Cecilia immediately covered her butt. Slap. The moment she turned her head, another crisp slap landed. Cecilia immediately felt a burning pain in her cleavage. Shameless, shameless, shameless. Asshole, I'm going to file a complaint against you. Cecilia was so angry that tears kept rolling down her face. He hit her but before, and now her breasts. What kind of instructor was this? He was a hooligan that escaped from prison. File a complaint against me? Hearing this, Dustless curled his lips in disdain and said with disdain, I'm the boss of this school. You want to file a complaint against me? Believe it or not, I'll expel you right now and make sure you can't step into IS Academy for the rest of your life. You brought this upon yourself. Who told you to call me a male yiksha? Dustless's attitude was extremely unfriendly as he added, I'm just a narrow-minded person. But, although this chick is young, she's developed quite well. Thinking of the touch of the chest just now, Wu Chen's calm heart had a ripple. One of his hands almost couldn't catch it. Okay. Cecilia resisted the urge to vomit blood and said okay 3 times in a row. It was obvious that she was truly enraged. As a noble of Ing Kingdom, when had she ever been humiliated like this? Let's see how you're going to ambush me this time. As she spoke, Cecilia gently flew up and gradually flew into the sky. She was about 20 to 30 meters above the ground. Looking down at the tiny black dot on the ground, Cecilia's smile was like a flower. How can you defeat me without IS? No, don't even talk about defeating me. Can you even touch me? Although a bit arrogant, you're very smart. You know how to use your strengths to make up for your weaknesses. Wu Chen raised his head slightly and looked at Cecilia, who was hovering in the sky. He nodded slightly. To be honest, once Cecilia attacked from the sky, unless it was an IS user, there was no doubt that a male instructor like Dustless would be defeated. Other than Ikia Vega, there was no other male in the world that could control IS. How about this, let's make a bet. Looking down at Dustless on the ground, Cecilia seemed to feel that the outcome was already decided. Her crisp and arrogant voice echoed throughout the simulation field. Whoever loses will forever be the other's slave. How about that? No matter what the request is, it must be obeyed unconditionally. Today, Cecilia suffered unprecedented humiliation. How could she let Dustless go? Not only did she want to defeat this guy, but she also wanted to make him her slave for life. Are you serious? It just so happens that my back has been hurting lately. Dustless looked at Cecilia flying in the sky with a smile. His eyes narrowed into crescents like a cunning fox. He chuckled. Every day when I get off work, it would be best if I have a maid to serve me. Chapter 3. Julanshu's heart was incomparably complicated. It was as if a bottle of mixed feelings had been knocked over. He gently stared at Yuji, but Yuji's face was full of fear. Julanshu's heart felt like it was being cut by a knife. His sister looked at him with eyes full of hatred and hostility. It's a good thing that Yuji is with this guy for now. She won't be targeted by others, so it's not a bad thing. Julanshu comforted himself and showed a faint smile. It was as if he had really gotten over it, but it was still full of bitterness and reluctance. Moreover, Yulan Yuji was not as simple as his sister. In the vampire family, intermarriage between siblings was common, especially in the family of pure-blooded vampires. This kind of thing was not strange. Watching his fiancée being hugged by someone else while he could do nothing, Yulan Shu felt like he had eaten a fly. He felt nauseous and suffocated. It's snowing heavily outside. Come in and sit. Black Lord Hui Yen said in a friendly manner. He even made an inviting gesture, inviting Dustless to come in. Yuji. Black House Hui Yen also stared at the girl with slight astonishment. She and Yuji's mother, Julan Shu, knew each other from the tree. Naturally, she recognized Yuji at first glance. What puzzled her was, why was it Wu Chen who was hugging her and not Julan Shu? Are you too hungry? I have some food here. Black Lord Hui Yen took out some biscuits. Although he was puzzled, he didn't ask any more. Seeing Jalanshu's bitter and sullen face, he guessed what had happened. Where did you come from? Black Lord Hui Yen looked at Dustless meaningfully. This was the first person who could make Jalanshu suffer, and it seemed to be a human. I came from a place far, far away. Dustless drank a mouthful of water. He knew that Black Lord Hui Yen wanted to pry for information, but he was also a newcomer. How far away is very far? It must have been hard for you to come all the way here. Jalanshu put his hands in his pockets, and his tone miraculously became a lot friendlier. Perhaps due to the presence of Yuji, the occasion was not suitable for him to get angry. He did not want to leave a bad impression on Yuji because of his relationship with Dustless. That's none of your business. Dustless didn't give Jalanshu any face. You. Jalanshu's lips moved, but in the end, she let out a muffled groan and fell silent. Hungry? Yuji suddenly took a biscuit and placed it in front of Dustless's mouth. Dustless immediately ate it without any hesitation. It tastes good. Seeing this scene, Jalanshu's face became even more depressed. This guy was extremely possessive, just like in the original work. If it wasn't for Joy Xingling's value, Jalanshu would have already dismembered him into 1,000 pieces. After all, he hadn't sucked Yuji's blood yet. In the end, Joy Xingling, this bastard, beat him to it. Jalanshu's heart was extremely unbalanced. I suddenly smell something special. Dustless suddenly opened his mouth and glanced at Jalanshu. What's that smell? Hei Yen and Yuji curiously looked at Dustless. At the same time, they took 2 deep breaths and didn't find any strange smell. Hee. Dustless looked directly at Jalanshu. He playfully looked at Jalanshu's tense face and said, "It's the smell of vinegar. I am truly impressed by your courage." Hei Yen followed Dustless's gaze and glanced at Jalanshu. When he saw Jalanshu's dark expression, he immediately understood what was going on. He couldn't help but secretly give a thumbs up to Dustless. This guy was simply playing with his life. Wasn't he afraid of being dismembered by Jalanshu? I'm going out to take a breather. Jalanshu walked out with heavy steps. With every step, the floor cracked. However, this guy paid attention to suppressing his emotions and didn't explode. I heard that you have just killed a vampire. May I know your name? Maybe we are in the same line of work. I am Hei Yen. Hei Yen was very interested in Dustless. Dustless was the first person who could make Jalanshu suffer and didn't dare to do anything. Call me Dustless. Dustless also took the initiative to introduce himself. He looked at the wind and snow outside the window and said, I have a presumptuous request. I would like to temporarily leave Yuji here. After hearing this, Hei Yen and Yuji stared at Dustless. Especially Yuji, who directly hugged Dustless's arm and cried, What did I do wrong? Don't abandon me. After saying this, she hugged Dustless tightly and clutched his clothes. We haven't even known each other for an hour, and this little girl is already so dependent on me. She is too naive and easily deceived. Dustless sighed and said, I didn't say that I would leave you. Actually, I don't have anywhere to go right now. Really? Hearing this, Hei Yan's eyes lit up and suggested, Why don't you stay here with me? Yuji is not young anymore. She will need to go to school sooner or later. Dustless lowered his head and thought for a while. He didn't have a fixed place to stay, so he nodded and agreed, it shouldn't be a problem. Just don't regret it. Oh right, are you a human? Hei Yen suddenly asked. Dustless was silent and didn't answer. Hei Yen thought that he was angry and quickly explained, I don't mean anything else. It's just that, kind of, but also not. Dustless gave an answer that confused Hei Yen. He looked at him speechlessly. What did he mean? Was he a vampire and also a human? It's too stupid to judge a person's character based on their race. Although some people are human, they are worse than animals. In the eyes of humans, vampires are cruel and heartless. In fact, some vampires also have a kind heart. Dustless said slowly. Hei Yan's eyes lit up and he looked at him with friendliness. He felt that he had met someone who understood him. His dream was for humans and vampires to live in peace. Dustless seemed to have this intention too. Hei Yen knew that Yuji was a pure-blooded vampire. Julanchu also pointed out that Yuji was his sister, indirectly acknowledging the vampire's identity. Dustless didn't mind. The two of them, in some ways, were like-minded. Chapter 4. Not only was it dark above Chueishua's head, but the sky within a few kilometers was also dark as if it was the end of the world. The sun that shone down from the sky was completely blocked. Mountains. 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 Chueishua was stunned, staring at the floating mountains in the sky. Dustless was casually controlling them, ordering them around. That simple and relaxed look was as smooth as eating and drinking, as if it was a game. Chueishua was completely stunned, standing there motionless like a statue. She already thought that she was very powerful when she made the building float in the air, but Dustless used the Tensigan's power to move the mountains in the nearby city to her. The contrast between before and after was like heaven and earth. What about you? Now, you also have two choices. Dustless said slowly, you gave me two choices just now, and now I will also give you two choices. First, from now on, pledge allegiance to me and be my servant. Second, just like what you said just now, I will be a little harsh and make you disappear from this planet. Dustless's words were like a cold storm, blowing Chueishua's body, causing her to tremble. No, I am a hero of the Hero Association. How can I pledge allegiance to a nobody like you? Chueishua gritted her teeth, looking unwilling and unwilling. She continued to struggle, and, killing me won't do you any good. My sister is, Trembling Tornado, the second most powerful S-class hero. If you kill me, she will definitely hunt you down all over the world. This wasn't nonsense. Tornado did have a morbid desire to protect Chueishua. Ha ha ha, this is ridiculous. Who knew that Dustless didn't take it to heart at all? He looked at Chueishua with extreme sarcasm and mocked. I remember, you actually hate your sister very much. After all, she always oppresses you, and now you want to use her name to survive. What a joke, woman. Wuchen ridiculed in an eccentric manner. Blowing Snow didn't know how to respond. That was the truth. With a sister like Tornado, Blowing Snow was under a lot of pressure. Even when facing Tornado, she felt inferior and couldn't raise her head. She was determined to surpass Tornado. Since she couldn't do it alone, she would find more people. That was why she established the snow-blowing group. But didn't she still have to rely on Tornado to survive? I'm sorry, but your threats are useless against me. Die. After saying that, Dustless coldly withdrew the gravity. Without his control, the mountain debris that filled the sky suddenly poured down and smashed towards the ground. You lunatic. Snowstorm couldn't help but gasp. Was this bastard not afraid of being torn apart by the tornado? Staring at the debris falling from the sky, Snowstorm suddenly remembered the past. Because her sister was too outstanding, there were always people who liked to compare them. If there was no comparison, there would be no harm. So, she had been living under the shadow of her sister for all these years. I haven't surpassed my sister yet. I can't die yet. I promise you. I'll be your servant. Snowstorm almost screamed out the last sentence with tears in her eyes. Because at this moment, her dignity and confidence had been completely crushed by Dustless. Luckily, you spoke quickly. Otherwise, if you were delayed for a while, it would have been a different ending. Wu Chen's voice sounded again and the tense atmosphere disappeared. Chueishua subconsciously raised his head and looked. That incomparably huge mountain fragment was already floating above his head. It was so close that he could touch it if he stretched out his hand. Gulp. Snowstorm couldn't help but choke. Just like Dustless said, luckily she spoke quickly. If she played with it for a while, she would have been turned into minced meat. Pa. Then, Dustless snapped his fingers. A large amount of mountain debris floated into the distance. Snowstorm's crisis was also resolved. Phew. I'm finally saved. After the mountain debris flew away, the bright sunlight shone down on her face. Snowstorm looked up at the sky and enjoyed the comfortable sunlight. Even though it was blinding, she had never felt so comfortable before. It was great to be alive. Let me introduce myself first. My name is Dustless. Dustless lazily walked to Snowstorm's side. Looking at the girl who had a face full of joy after surviving the disaster, he said softly, "Since you're my person, you should withdraw from the Hero Association." Withdraw from the Hero Association? Snowstorm's face stiffened. She said with some resistance, "I'm a hero. It doesn't seem to have any conflict with you, being your servant, right?" Nonsense. There must be a conflict for you to withdraw from the Hero Association. Those idiots have already put me on the wanted list. Dustless said with a gloomy face. He was afraid that Snowstorm didn't understand what he meant. 10 tails suddenly appeared from his back. This. Are you really the 10 tails weirdo from yesterday? Snowstorm's eyes constricted violently. She looked at Dustless in shock. Aren't the so-called weirdos all ugly people? Why is Dustless so handsome? His chiseled face, exquisite facial features, and neat and clean short hair made him look cool and capable. Especially his figure, it suited Snowstorm's taste. During the battle, she used Hurricane to blow up Dustless's clothes. The 8 well-proportioned abs on his abdomen left a deep impression on Snowstorm. Furthermore, Dustless seemed to be able to transform at will. He could switch between human and weirdo at will. Bullsh *T weirdo. I'm not a weirdo. I'm the 10 tails weirdo. It's just that those idiots are ignorant. I just came here and they made me a weirdo. Dustless said unhappily. He didn't cause any damage. What the *CK? As for the Metal Knight, to put it bluntly, it was Dustless's passive counterattack. It was the guy who provoked him first. He even used Dustless as a test target for his new weapon. Chapter 5. This guy is really special. No wonder Principal Margaret values him so much. Looks like it's not just because he's from Bridget's family. There must be some other unknown reason. Aoki and Yi muttered to themselves. They were confused about Principal Margaret's thoughts. They looked out of the window and saw that the black cars behind them were all Pandora, and they were all elites. And it was worth mentioning that this wasn't all of their forces. Behind these black cars, there were also several trucks. Looking carefully, they were all Pandora. Wasn't it strange? Did they need so many Pandora to escort one person? This lineup looked like they were escorting a criminal. Surprisingly calm. Aoki and Yi glanced at Dustless and smiled bitterly. They looked up and saw Dustless lying on the side with his eyes closed. His expression was calm as if he was asleep. On the way, Dustless was very quiet and didn't do anything out of the ordinary. Thus, they arrived at Signetix Academy unscathed. Accompanied by Aoki and Yi, they went to the principal's office. "Principal Margaret, he's here." In the slightly oppressive office, the air was stuffy. There were only 3 people, Principal Margaret, Aoki, Yi, and Dustless. "This is the principal. She's more plain and simple than I imagined. How disappointing." Dustless lowered his head and muttered to himself. He instantly lost interest in this so-called principal. "Aoki and Yi, thank you for your hard work. Go back and rest first. I have something to discuss with Mr. Dustless." Principal Margaret showed a kind face and waved her hand. "I understand." Hearing this, Aoki and Yi nodded and left silently. Only Dustless and Margaret were left in the large office. The atmosphere also fell into silence. Margaret's gaze was focused on Dustless, and a cold light flashed in her eyes from time to time. "What do you mean?" After a long while, someone finally spoke. The person who spoke was Dustless, and his tone was cold and filled with dissatisfaction. Upon hearing this, Principal Margaret's expression changed slightly. She could hear the coldness in Dustless's tone. She pretended to be confused and said, "What do you mean by that? I don't understand. Still playing dumb with me?" Dustless smiled contemptuously, pointed at the closed door, and sneered, "How many people are waiting outside? Even if there weren't 100 of them, there were at least a few dozen of them, right? How bored are you?" With Dustless's words, Principal Margaret could no longer maintain her composure. The friendliness on her face disappeared and was replaced by an unprecedented coldness. "How rude. Before asking others, shouldn't you explain yourself first?" Since they had already shed all pretense of cordiality, Principal Margaret no longer hid anything and said bluntly, "You've been in Bridget's family for 3 days. Find out what happened yourself." Other than Bridget, who is intact, everyone else died one after another. Isn't this too much of a coincidence? So it's about this matter. Hearing this, Dustless revealed a look of understanding and asked with interest, "So you think that I'm the murderer?" "I don't have any evidence." Principal Margaret shook her head and answered truthfully. Then, she said in a serious tone, "But you're the most suspicious. This matter has caused an uproar in the world." "Is that so?" Dustless didn't care about this. He poured himself a cup of coffee and said leisurely, "So what do you think now? Do you intend to arrest me directly, or do you want to use peaceful means before resorting to force?" Principal Margaret didn't say a word. She knitted her brows and stared at Dustless. Even though she was close by, she felt like she was looking at flowers in a fog. She couldn't see through Dustless's thoughts and couldn't figure out what this man was thinking. If it were an ordinary person who knew that there were dozens of Pandoras outside, and they were all elites among elites, they would definitely be scared to death. But Dustless, on the other hand, didn't care at all. His pair of calm eyes were as calm as still water. There was no fear in them and his aura was even stronger than Principal Margaret's. "What do you want to do? Hurry up. Don't waste my time," Dustless said impatiently. "Phew." Principal Margaret took a deep breath. After a moment of silence, she finally said, "Although you are a suspect, there is no direct evidence pointing to you killing the members of Bridget's family. There are no signs of their assets being misappropriated. All of it is attributed to Bridget. You came looking for me in such a big way just to say this nonsense? It's so boring. I really feel bad for the dozens of Pandoras standing guard outside," Dustless said casually. He didn't take the so-called dean seriously at all. This bastard. Hearing this, Principal Margaret's mouth twitched and her expression kept changing. This brat was too arrogant. He didn't take her seriously at all and spoke so casually. It felt like she was talking to a passerby. "However, it's good that you came to this school. We also need to investigate you." Margaret stared at Dustless and didn't hide anything. "Whatever." Dustless shrugged calmly without changing his expression. Not to mention that they couldn't find anything. Even if they did, what could they do? Count on the group of Pandoras to catch Dustless? Stop joking. They were not in the same dimension. Even the legendary Pandoras could only look up to him. "What other requests do you have? If not, then according to Miss Bridget's letter, you will be our school's teacher from now on." Chapter 6. Dustless suddenly became a candidate for the general of the New Young group. This made many demons flabbergasted. First, he became the boss of the Demon Ox group. Then, he suddenly became a candidate for the general. This was a typical example of a salted fish turning over a new leaf. Although many were dissatisfied, there was nothing they could do. Firstly, it was Demon Ox who recommended him. Secondly, it was Dustless's own strength that no one could match. Other than his lack of experience and his short time in Nulyang group, he was perfect in almost every aspect. After meeting with the general, Dustless and Demon Ox were arranged to stay. Although there were many demons here, the environment was not bad. It was quiet and secluded. No one disturbed them. That Geo is a big problem. In the empty room, Dustless and Demon Ox sat together. He looked at the blooming cherry blossoms outside the window. It was a rare and beautiful scene. As for Demon Ox, he was drinking alone. A cold light flashed in his eyes from time to time. Don't worry. He won't live for long. Demon Ox put down the wine cup in his hand. A vicious killing intent flashed across his face. He sneered and said, not long ago, his personal doctor, Snake Lady, was recruited by me. That guy still dares to go against me. He doesn't know what's good for him. It seems like I don't have to do anything. You will take care of that guy. Dustless stretched and decided to lie on the tatami. He asked, did you arrange an assassin beside Nuliang Lu Xiong? This, Demon Ox hesitated for a moment. Then, he squeezed out a helpless smile. Young Master's guards are all his trusted aides. I don't have any room to interfere. However, I secretly took in the people from the old rat group. They will help find a chance to kill Lu Xiong. You are really smart. I heard that the old rat group has been expelled. Even if they kill Nuliang, Lu Xiong won't suspect us. Dustless couldn't help but give Demon Ox a thumbs up. This guy was brave and smart. He even knew how to plan ahead. No wonder he had such a high position in Nuliang group. Tap, 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 light footsteps came from outside the door. Dustless and Ghost Ox raised their heads and looked over. What came into their eyes were two beautiful women. Heir and Snow Lady. Ghost Ox frowned and asked, did the general order you to come? The Snow Maiden nodded before glancing at Dustless and saying, from now on, Master Dustless is a candidate to become the general of the Nuliang organization, so we have to increase the number of guards around him. We'll also take care of his daily needs. Why would I need a guard? Dustless chuckled. Does he think I'm an idiot? It was obvious that the general had ulterior motives. You call yourself a guard, but you're actually here to keep an eye on me, right? Ghost Ox felt disdain in his heart. He looked at Hormao and Snow Lady and said expressionlessly, both of you can go back. Lord Dustless doesn't need any guards. If he must, then it doesn't matter. Just stay here. Dustless interrupted Bull Spirit. Even if he declined, it would be useless. The general would probably send someone else to be his bodyguard. Both of you can go back first. Help me thank the general. Come back at night. I have something to discuss with Ghost Ox now. Dustless waved his hand. The Snow Maiden and Hormao looked at each other before leaving respectfully. These two chicks are really talented in acting. Seeing how respectful the two of them were, Dustless was speechless. When he met the general previously, the Snow Maiden wanted to freeze him. These two are on the general's side. It's dangerous to keep them around. Ghost Ox frowned and reminded him. The Snow Maiden and Hormao were loyal to the general and Nuliang Lu Xiong. Of course I know. But what's the use of rejecting them? That old man will play other tricks next time. Seriously, the general is already a few hundred years old. How can an old man like him be so playful? Dustless admired the cherry blossoms dancing in the sky as he complained, at least there are two women. If there were two demons, that would be terrible. You can go now. I'm going to sleep for a while. After saying that, Dustless closed his eyes. Ghost Ox left tactfully and went to secretly contact Shirtu and Old Rat. After witnessing Dustless's strength, Ghost Ox was completely convinced. In this world where the strong preyed on the weak, only the strong could rule everything. A weakling like Nuliang Lu Xiong was not qualified to be the boss. When night fell, the Snow Maiden and Hormao came again. The two of them woke up Dustless, who was sleeping soundly, and brought lunchboxes. What a strange food. Dustless looked at the dishes on the table. Almost all of them were made with ice. He picked up his chopsticks and tasted them. The taste was not bad. I didn't expect you to be so good at cooking at such a young age. Dustless gave the Snow Maiden a thumbs up and praised. Nonsense, cooking is my forte. Hearing that, the Snow Maiden looked at Dustless with a smile. Then, she suddenly remembered that Dustless wanted to take the general's position. Her face instantly turned cold. She snorted and said, "Eat it gratefully." This is your fortune from 8 lifetimes. Humph. Hearing that, Dustless touched his nose awkwardly. This woman was really arrogant. About 10 minutes later, Dustless finished his dinner. He lay lazily for a while and burped. When the two of them were about to leave, Dustless suddenly spoke. Snow Maiden, you can go. Whore Mao, stay. The corner of Wu Chen's mouth curled into a wicked smile. Prostitute Mao looked back and suddenly shivered. She wanted to refuse, but she didn't have a suitable excuse. When the general arranged for the two of them to come here, he ordered them to monitor Wu Chen's every move and inquire about his identity and origin. Chapter 7. The place that had just been loosened, this chick suddenly grabbed it again. Wu Chen suddenly shivered. What are you doing? Dustless's face twitched. Perhaps she was too nervous, but her strength was a little too much. Ouch, ouch, ouch. Damn, do you want me to die without any descendants? I'm sorry, I'm really sorry. Shirley's mouth trembled, and she could not even speak clearly. His Majesty ordered me to serve you to the best of my ability. This kind of small matter, just leave it to me. Shirley then squeezed out some shower gel and smeared it on his body. She slid it down gently. Dustless was stunned. This was the first time he had met Shirley, and she was already doing something like this. Could it be, you're mesmerized by me? Dustless suddenly puffed out his chest and thought narcissistically. Ah. Don't move. Shirley cried out awkwardly. Dustless's movement was fine, but she almost lost her grip because of the shower gel. Really, if you can't get used to it, then refuse. No one forced you to do this. Dustless naturally noticed Shirley's difficulties. She was very unfamiliar with the technique, and it even made Dustless feel a little pain. Perhaps it was because it was her first time bathing someone, and sometimes she could not control her strength well. This painful but happy scene lasted for about 10 minutes. When it was over, Shirley took Dustless to the bedroom to rest. Before she left, she even prepared a dazzling array of snacks. In the king's council chamber. Old man, why didn't you chase that guy away? You actually let him stay overnight? Is there something wrong with your brain? Veronica was throwing a tantrum at King Edward, who was sitting on the throne. She was so angry that she was about to vomit blood. Her disrespectful tone didn't sound like she was talking to her father at all. However, King Edward merely stroked his beard. He seemed to be used to Veronica's behavior. The reason she was so angry was that she had also heard that Dustless had stayed overnight. Veronica wanted to kill Dustless immediately, but when she thought of the difference between them, she dismissed that unrealistic thought. If she rashly challenged Dustless, the scene just now might happen again. When she thought of how Dustless humiliated her, Veronica's whole body turned cold, and goosebumps rose all over. Now, this bastard who bullied her was living in her house. This was simply outrageous. You seem to have a big problem with Dustless, Veronica. King Edward looked suspiciously at Veronica's face, and asked curiously, do you know him? Veronica was slightly startled, and then she gave a disdainful glance. Who knows that kind of guy? Whenever I see him. No, I feel bad when I hear his name. But you do, Edwards. You, as the saying goes, no one knows a daughter better than a father, and no one knew Veronica better than him. Those who offended me are all dead, Veronica said coldly. I'm just worried that Dustless will harm Sylvia. Veronica snorted coldly. Then, her tone became gentle. Whenever Sylvia was mentioned, Veronica would dote on her with infinite tenderness. That's true. Hearing Veronica's explanation, King Edward's doubts were relieved. Yes, those who dared to provoke his eldest daughter were all dead. If they were enemies, they would have died long ago. In fact, what King Edward did not know was that Dustless was not Veronica's enemy, but her nemesis. Although I don't know where Dustless came from, I can be sure that he will not harm Sylvia. Absolutely not. King Edward's tone was very serious and very certain. Why? Veronica was stunned for a moment. Her father had only met Wu Chen today. Where did he get the confidence to be so certain? Think about it. If he wants to harm Sylvia, is there a need to bring her back? No, there is no need to kill her. Just throw her deep into the mountains and let her live on her own, King Edward explained. So, the possibility of Dustless harming Sylvia is completely non-existent. Keeping him here is actually because of his strength. King Edward's eyes shone. The two empires at the border of the kingdom have wild ambitions against us. The benefits of having a strong military force are self-evident. I heard from Sylvia that Dustless is very strong. He can even fly without a dragon. And most importantly, King Edward exhaled and looked at Veronica excitedly. This is what Sylvia told me. Dustless and the Dragon Mother seem to be very close. The Dragon Mother even has a favor to ask of Dustless. I plan to ask him to help you. Veronica had the potential to be a dragon breeder, but sadly, when she was baptized, the Dragon Mother despised the girl's fierce eyes and felt that she was not suitable to be a dragon breeder. So that's how it is? Veronica's eyes lit up. She was obviously moved, and her heart raced. But on second thought. What, asking her to ask that big pervert for help? No, no way. Veronica waved her hand and left in anger. What dragon breeder, what dragon knight, they are all bullsh*t. I, Veronica, am not weak even without Parker. Asking Veronica to ask Dustless for help was more painful than killing her. Chapter 8. Elise bowed again and again, showing her sincerity. She even took out Fat 2 as a thank you gift. Although it was very awkward, Elise had to admit that it was hard on her. It also showed her sincerity. She seemed to be embarrassed to reject him again, but she should forget about asking Dustless to accept her Fat 2. How about this? Dustless stared at the nervous Elise again and again, his eyes narrowed into crescents. He chuckled and said, Micah is the maid of the dean. Sometimes she doesn't have time to serve me, so she goes against me secretly. I'm still short of someone by my side. How about you? Sure. Elise nodded without the slightest hesitation. Wu Chen felt strange when he heard that. Didn't this child agree too quickly? My request is not as simple as you think. To a certain extent, it's a contract of selling yourself. Dustless repeated again, although the conditions are a little harsh, I don't think it's too much. There's no such thing as a free lunch in this world. There's always a price to pay for asking for help, right? In this day and age, even monks asked for incense money. Wasn't it normal to ask for favors? Okay. Elise still did not hesitate, but she was secretly laughing in her heart. Her request was very simple. In fact, she wanted Dustless to kill her. Once Elise was dead, the White Leviathan would leave and the crisis would be resolved. If Elise was dead, how could she agree to Dustless's conditions? So she was very puzzled. This guy actually asked for such a condition. Was he retarded? Ow ow ow. Ow ow ow. Ow ow ow, the White Leviathan sang as it moved forward. All kinds of powerful attacks could not hit it at all. It's useless. This guy's ability is universal repulsion. What can your puny attacks do? Dustless watched silently. In the sky around the Leviathan, there were a few petite figures wandering around. Without a doubt, only D dared to fight the dragon. They were Matsumoto Fukumoto and Lisa Hayaka, Phyllis Crest, Ren Miyazawa, and Ella Liu. 5 of them. Even though they had the absolute advantage in numbers, their attacks were completely useless, as the Leviathan of White's massive body was covered with a layer of transparent air shield. No matter what kind of attacks they launched, they couldn't break through it, and they would even be repelled. Attack together. Mob Shin ordered loudly. Instantly, a series of concentrated attacks came from all directions. Boom boom boom. Another wave of powerful attacks landed on the Leviathan of White. The layer of energy shield on its skin was constantly exploding, and sparks flew everywhere. However, the interior was still intact. It was useless. Woo woo woo, perhaps the Leviathan of White was tired of playing, and it opened its mouth, revealing its sharp fangs. Ow, 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 ow. A series of ghastly roars rang out as powerful shockwaves swept through Midgar in an unstoppable manner like gales with force of over 100. Boom boom boom. Boom boom boom. Boom boom boom. A large number of buildings collapsed once again, and the prosperous Midgar Academy was almost completely turned into ruins. Bang bang bang. This storm was so powerful that Mob Shin and the others who were entrenched around the Leviathan of White were also affected. They were directly blown away, and their bodies landed heavily on the ground in the distance. Their bones were about to fall apart. Shin Shin. Mob Shin, who was recuperating, looked at his sister who had fallen to the ground. His handsome face was distorted. That was his sister, how could he not feel heartache? He looked at the Leviathan of White with extreme hatred. Looking at the massive body, Mob Shin felt helpless. In front of a dragon, what could a human do? At least I have to try once. Mob Shin's eyes flickered with a cold light. Just as he was about to make a move, the sky suddenly darkened. He looked up subconsciously, and it turned out to be, boom boom boom. The Leviathan of White's massive claws slammed into the hospital where Mob Shin was. The hospital instantly collapsed and turned into a pile of ruins. It seems that it can't be stopped at all. Dustless scratched his head when he saw this. He couldn't help but take out his hands that were always in his trouser pockets. He pointed at the Leviathan of White, turned his head and said to Elise, "You wait here. I'll go and say hello to that kid." That kid. Elise looked in the direction where Dustless's finger was pointing. It was the huge body of the Leviathan of White. Her pretty face suddenly darkened, and she reprimanded, "Please stop this kind of joke." "Don't." Elise discovered miserably that before she could finish her sentence, Wu Chen had disappeared mysteriously. Only his words were left in the vast and mighty heaven and earth. "Don't forget the promise from before. Once you get rid of that kid, you will be my servant." Elise wanted to cry but had no tears. She only asked Dustless to kill her. Why would there be so much trouble? Damn it. Is there really no way to stop it? Mob Shin got up from the ground with difficulty. Her face was covered with dirt, and there was a trace of blood at the corner of her mouth. Some parts of her body were also bruised. She was in a very sorry state. However, with the support of her strong will, the child miraculously stood up again. Whoosh whoosh whoosh, Mob Shin waved her hand gently, and several sharp arrows shot at the Leviathan of White. Boom boom boom. The fatal arrows were blocked by the transparent barrier on the surface of the dragon before they got close to it. Such a dull attack had no effect at all. It was like a stone sinking into the sea, and it only splashed a few sparks before it was extinguished. Ow ow ow. The Leviathan of White turned its head and roared angrily. A pair of man-eating eyes fell on Moto Fukumoto's head. Its huge body slowly turned around, and its huge forelimbs slowly raised. Even the sky was covered, and it was pitch black. Is this the end? Mob Shin smiled bitterly. There was a trace of reluctance and relief on her bitter face. It was not easy to meet Mob Shin again. Before she had time to talk, the good chat was about to end. Chapter 9. The secret room where Makoto and Fugaku were talking was torn apart and instantly burst open, turning into a pile of rubble and exposed to the sunlight. Looking straight ahead, the scene of the secret room could be seen at a glance. Uchiha Makoto was still okay, but Uchiha Fugaku was a different story. Fugaku was lying on the ground with his butt facing the sky. His prestige as a patriarch was completely lost. When the Uchiha clansmen who came to support saw Fugaku's expression, they were stunned and had a strange expression on their faces. Compared with the usual serious patriarch, the contrast was huge. Fugaku hurriedly stood up and looked at the strange expressions of his clansmen. He wanted to laugh but didn't dare to laugh, just like a cat whose tail was stepped on. Who did this? Get out of here. Fugaku roared like a raging lion, his face was red, and his ferocious eyes were like that of a berserk beast. Anyone who was stared at by Fugaku would feel scared, and their hair would stand up unconsciously. It's been a long time. At this moment, an unusually indifferent and disdainful voice sounded. The childish voice was obviously from the 10-year-old Dustless. Remembering Fugaku's strange posture, Dustless didn't hesitate to add oil to the fire and said, "Worthy of being the patriarch, the real pillar of the Uchiha clan." Dustless looked at Fugaku with admiration. "I'm not as good as you. It turned out to be you, little bastard. Did you do this?" Looking at the place where the voice came from, it was Dustless with a smile on his face. Uchiha Fugaku was furious. His rage value was off the charts, and his head was full of #S. Obviously, he was very angry. He wanted to scold the little bastard, but he quickly changed his words because that would be tantamount to scolding himself. Looking at the ruins of the secret room, Fugaku's eyes were full of coldness, and he gritted his teeth. "As you can see." With a chuckle, Wu Chen said indifferently. He immediately looked at Fugaku with a mocking expression. His eyes were cold, and his cold voice spread out. "Fugaku Uchiha, cut the crap, I don't have time to listen to your nonsense. Is this how you talk to your father who gave birth to you?" Hearing this, Fugaku was furious. He clenched his fists with a dark face, suppressing the fire in his heart. His skin didn't move as he asked Dustless. His voice was so sharp that it made people's scalp numb. If it weren't for the fact that there were so many people, and the bad reputation of killing his son, he would definitely make Dustless bleed on the spot. "Father?" Dustless dug his ears and pretended to be surprised as he said, "Father? So you still know that you have a son, this kind of thing?" Wu Chen dragged out his voice. Everyone understood the sarcasm in his words. "You." Fugaku's face was pale, he looked gloomily at Dustless, he took a deep breath and said, "I'm too lazy to talk nonsense with you. After a month, you will participate in the Third World War as a ninja of the Uchiha clan." Fugaku waved his hand with a look of annoyance, as if he could see the tragic death of Dustless in the future. Fugaku grinned. "Don't hate us, there is nothing we can do." The corner of her mouth slightly squirmed, and Mikoto sobbed silently. Obviously she still loved Dustless very much. Dustless's face was as usual, and he glanced at Mikoto. His dark eyes were locked on Fugaku, and he didn't waver. He already expected this. The relationship between the Uchiha clan and Konoha's higher-ups is well known. Although Fugaku promised to send ninjas to participate in the Third World War, most of them are cannon fodder, most of them are people who have exhausted their talent, and at the very least, they are trash like Dustless. Who gave you the right to make your own decision, and, what if I say no? Then you will die. Fugaku's eyes turned rapidly, and the scarlet-red tomo began to rotate, showing his determination. The cold and chilling murderous aura swept through everyone present like a hurricane, and the scene was silent and extremely depressing. The Uchiha clan members had different expressions, but most of them were like this. The world is like this, the weak should have the consciousness of the weak, don't try to resist fate, and those who don't have the strength to resist fate will be crushed by the gears of time. Because it's not just the Uchiha clan, it's the same everywhere in the world. Is that so? Hearing this, Dustless just snorted disdainfully. His young but mature face had an unruly smile. It was a kind of eagerness to try. Does this guy want to die? He dares to challenge the patriarch. The Uchiha looked at Dustless's arrogant face, and they were shocked. The strength of the patriarch is naturally second to none in the Uchiha clan, especially in a pure fighting family like the Uchiha clan. Without the strength of the entire Uchiha clan, it's impossible to be the patriarch. Good boy, I was really blind before, I didn't see that you are a traitor. Fugaku cursed, and his face turned green, being challenged by a 10-year-old trash. He is definitely the first patriarch of the Uchiha clan since ancient times. Looking at the angry Fugaku, Dustless didn't know what was going on, and then he looked at Fugaku seriously and said, "A patriarch is so afraid of death, don't worry, I will just teach you a lesson, I won't kill you." Fugaku, the Uchiha were also speechless. Where did this trash get the confidence to challenge the patriarch? Chapter 10. Isn't that guy a little too sharp? Stacy and Ebony Hue, who were in a different spot, broke out in cold sweat. They stole glances at Dustless from the corner of their eyes, and their hearts were in turmoil. Because in the upcoming open tournament, every student was an enemy, and Dustless was no exception. Both of them knew how strong Dustless was, and so they wanted to work together to deal with him. But this guy, his ability to foresee the future really made them feel ashamed. Maybe it's just a wild guess. Stacy and Ebony Hue glanced at each other, and both of them thought that it was just a blind cat meeting a dead mouse. During the meal, Dustless didn't bother with the two of them. He finished his meal early and left. When he passed by Stacy and Ebony Hue, he gave them a look that said, "Do your best." After lunch, Dustless didn't rush back to the dormitory. If he slept for too long, he would have a headache. Instead, he strolled around the Shatterer Academy, admiring the scenery around him. The Shatterer Academy was indeed one of the top night academies in Japan. It had everything. The landscaping was done quite well, and there were all kinds of entertainment venues on campus. However, Dustless wasn't interested in any of them, and he was bored as he strolled around. "It's that guy, right? I will never forgive you." Looking at the figure in front of her, the white-haired loli's face flashed with a cold light, and then she silently followed him. After about a few minutes, Dustless walked to a dark and shady place. It was a narrow corner, and there was no one around, and there were no cameras to observe him. "You've been following me for so long. Are you here to avenge your brother, Ebony Hue?" Dustless suddenly stopped. The figure also stopped and quickly hid. "There's no use hiding, Miss Ebony Hue." After calling out the girl's name, the white-haired loli walked out from the shadows, and her beautiful eyes looked at Dustless unkindly. Ayaya. What a scary gaze. Dustless was unmoved by the girl's ferocious stare. He could tell at a glance that this was the Black Iron Pearl Viper. "You made my brother lose face and was laughed at by so many people. I can't forgive you." The Black Iron Pearl Centipede's body was overflowing with cold air. Even her eyebrows were covered in a layer of cold mist. "Of course I knew you wouldn't let me go, so I chose such a remote place. Otherwise, it would be troublesome if those cameras caught me using spiritual equipment without permission. According to the school rules, you will be expelled," Dustless said calmly. His words made the Black Iron Pearl Centipede's pupils shrink. Could it be that this fellow discovered me long ago and deliberately brought me here? The Black Iron Bead Viper released its spiritual equipment and held a sharp dagger in its hand. It looked at Dustless with great vigilance. Perhaps this was a trap. "To be honest, I also want to teach you a lesson." Dustless grinned and said, "Your brother and Stacy plotted against me, so I'm just collecting some interest from his sister. That's not too much, right? That perverted princess." As if she had some impression of Stacy, the Black Iron Pearl Centipede immediately cursed. "I'll deal with you first." Crack, 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 crack. With the Black Iron Pearl Centipede as the center, a large amount of ice seeped out from under her feet, freezing the surrounding ground and swallowing Dustless. The ability to control ice. No wonder your relationship with Stacy is so bad. Fire and water are incompatible. Looking at the ice under his feet, Dustless smiled and looked calm. Then, he casually raised his right foot. What is he doing? Not planning to release his intrinsic spiritual equipment? The Black Iron Pearl Centipede looked at Dustless in confusion. She couldn't figure out what this guy wanted to do. Was he going to break her ice with one foot? Don't joke around. Actually, what the Black Iron Pearl Centipede didn't know was that Dustless didn't have the so-called intrinsic spiritual equipment. The heaven-gathering cloud sword was only imitated by the power of the glint fruit. Bang! The raised right foot suddenly landed on the ground. The ground immediately trembled and a large number of cracks appeared. The spreading ice on the ground cracked and shattered. His physical skills are so strong. Didn't you say this guy was good at using swords and fire? The Black Iron Pearl Centipede opened her eyes wide. When she looked at Dustless again, her body suddenly tensed up. Because Dustless had disappeared from her sight. Where is he? The black iron pearl centipede looked left and right, looking for Dustless's whereabouts. Full of flaws, little brat. If you participate in the selection like this, you'll be eliminated sooner or later. The cold voice suddenly sounded behind her. The black iron pearl centipede couldn't help but be startled. Then, she turned around and stabbed. Too slow. The black iron pearl centipede was really too slow. Dustless easily caught her snow-white wrist and looked at the young girl with a trace of an evil smile. Tell me, how should I punish you? You better not mess around. The black iron pearl centipede was so scared that her face turned pale. She quickly thought of something and said, My father is Eben Yen, you know who he is, right? If you offend me, you'll die. Eben Yen, the head of the International Magician Knight Alliance's Japanese branch, the head of the Eben family, Eben Ihue and Eben Juji's father. His position was high and even the chairman had to give him some face. But unfortunately, Dustless had always been the kind of person who feared nothing. There was no way to threaten him. If you're scared, then let go. Seeing Dustless hesitate, the black iron pearl centipede smiled. But in the next second, her face turned green. Wuchen lifted the girl's skirt, revealing her snow-white perky buttocks and fair skin. He couldn't help but stare blankly. You're so young, yet you're wearing black fat too. What a heavy taste. No wonder you're a brother complex. Then, Dustless raised his hand and mercilessly slapped her. Pa, the burning pain attacked the black iron pearl centipede's mind. She gasped for breath and was about to faint. This guy dared to hit her but in broad daylight? Chapter 11. 3 days later, Dustless and Snowblast had arrived in another city. This city was often attacked by monsters, so many apartments and buildings were empty. Dustless and Snowblast chose an uninhabited villa as their base of operations. Lord Dustless, there's news from the Hero Association. Dustless was lazily sprawled on the sofa watching television. Snowblast suddenly walked over with a look of anger and grumbled, Those bunch of ungrateful bastards. They rejected it, right? Dustless guessed the answer when he saw Snowblast's enraged look. Dustless got Tornado to inform the Hero Association to cancel the bounty on the 10-tailed dragon-ranked monster. They had just called Snowblast, so it was likely that they had rejected it. Those bunch of bastards are really tired of living. Even Sister is no match for Lord Dustless. What right do they have to say no to Lord Dustless? Snowblast said indignantly. This was a world where strength reigned supreme. The strong could dominate everything as they wished, but the Hero Association appeared to be unconvinced. Heh. In this world, there are some things that cannot be resolved with pure strength. Dustless smiled nonchalantly. He was rather relaxed. Regarding the bounty on the 10-tailed dragon-ranked monster, he would cancel it if he could. If he could not, he did not care. At most, I'll beat up any hero I see in the future. I'll beat them until they are afraid. That bunch of people will also be obedient. Immediately following that, Dustless's face suffused a cold arc. By the way, immediately following that, Dustless suddenly changed the topic. He stared at Snowblast and asked, How's the training I assigned you going? I've already begun implementing it, but, Snowblast's face suffused a troubled look as she grumbled, Lord Dustless, aren't you being too harsh? You don't know how to treat a girl well. You're making a girl run 40 kilometers with weights, do 500 push-ups a day, and do all sorts of extreme exercises. With all of this added up, I don't even have time to sleep or rest. And most importantly, all of this added up is too torturous. Not to mention ordinary humans, even an A-class hero would not be able to withstand such physical training. Now that you mention it, it does seem a little harsh. Dustless stroked his chin and pondered. You call this similar? Chue Shui rolled her eyes in annoyance. After living with him for a few days, she already understood Dustless's temper. Although her master had unparalleled strength and was labeled as a dragon-class monster, the dustless in his daily life was still the kind of person that was easy to get along with. After spending some time with Dustless, Snowchaser's courage had grown. Sometimes, he would even joke with Dustless. But Shueishua, do you know where the strong come from? Talent is important, but as the saying goes, diligence can make up for stupidity. The so-called strong are actually made up for by taking advantage of other people's leisure time to train themselves like crazy. If you want to become strong, you have to learn how to endure hardships. Dustless educated Snowchaser with a serious look on his face. At this moment, he really looked like a teacher. Only by constantly pushing yourself to the limit can you break through the limit. I understand. Snowchaser nodded, but she didn't really understand. Rumble. A shocking explosion came from a certain direction. Dustless and Snowchaser immediately raised their heads. Dustless was already used to this kind of sudden explosion. It happened almost every day. Sometimes, it happened more than 10 times a day. Needless to say, it was probably some strange person causing trouble again, right? Snowchaser. Dustless's eyes fell on Snowchaser. Snowchaser immediately stood up and said seriously, I understand, Master Dustless. After saying that, Snowchaser walked over and calmly hugged Dustless. Obviously, this was not the first time. Her small hands skillfully locked onto Dustless's body. Then, Dustless's body began to emit a golden light. Dustless instantly turned into a beam of light and disappeared. In the past few days, Dustless had been ordering Snowchaser and all kinds of monsters to fight at high intensity. And now, this temporary target was here again. In the deep pit where the explosion happened, there was a tall monster. Its appearance was very similar to a human's. Its body was covered with strong muscles. The only thing that was quite strange about it was that its skin was blue-black. Furthermore, there were two antenna-like antennae on its forehead. Looking at the huge explosion nearby, it was easy to guess that this monster was not weak. It was the Vaccine Man, who claimed to be the will of the earth. Because it was unhappy with the destruction of the environment, it wanted to destroy the human race. Therefore, as soon as it appeared, the Vaccine Man caused a huge explosion and killed all the nearby humans. Look at this dirty world, and this dirty air, my God, I can't stand it. All of this is caused by those damned humans. They have turned this lovely world into such a mess. They have no value in living in this world. The Vaccine Man took 2 deep breaths of air and tasted it carefully. After that, he couldn't help but vomit. His face was full of disgust and disgust. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. Suddenly, a sharp sound came from the sky. The Vaccine Man couldn't help but look up. It was a beam of light that was quickly approaching. The speed of the beam was extremely fast. It was at least 100 meters away. Boom, boom, boom. After about 10 seconds, the beam of light landed on the ground. It landed right next to the Vaccine Man. Of course, this was Dustless and Snowchaser. Snowchaser, do you see this guy? You can use him as your opponent. Don't be afraid, this guy who looks strong on the outside is actually just a piece of trash. Dustless looked at the Vaccine Man and said softly. He didn't care about the latter's angry face at all. You stinky human, who are you calling a piece of trash that looks strong on the outside? The Vaccine Man roared with a gaze that could devour a person. His voice was hoarse as if he had shouted himself hoarse. Chapter 12. Is this girl's body made of water? It's so sensitive. Dustless laughed strangely and leaned close to Veronica's ear. After blowing a mouthful of hot air, he said, Do you want to play some fun games? Fun games? She didn't know why, but after hearing these words, Veronica immediately remembered the time when she was hung up and spanked by Dustless. She lost all the face she had accumulated in her life. You dead pervert, go play by yourself. Without thinking, Veronica refused. Iron Blood Valkyrie, you're nothing but a coward. Wu Chen muttered. Veronica's heart twitched when she heard that. She had to calm herself down. She only hoped that this jinx would leave quickly. But as the saying goes, good things don't come true. Veronica didn't want to see this happen. Your father's place is not bad. Tomorrow you go and tell him that I plan to live here for 10 days or half a month. Dustless said while holding his head. Bang! No, get out of here. Veronica flew into a rage and directly smashed the shower gel bottle. She shouted, "Don't get too carried away. This is the kingdom of Raymond, not your home. Only the royal family lives here." Veronica added. You are not a royal, you are not even a noble. You are just a commoner. Don't break the rules. Isn't it easy to become an aristocrat? Wu Chen smiled and didn't care about it. Becoming a noble isn't easy. Veronica calmed down and explained, nobles are usually hereditary or conferred upon those who have made great contributions to the kingdom. Another way is to become a dragon knight. No, these are too troublesome. There is a simpler way. Dustless said with a mysterious smile. Veronica was surprised. What is it? What did I miss? If I marry you, I'll become an aristocrat all of a sudden, and a top-notch one at that. Wu Chen grinned and said, this is a good thing that benefits me greatly. In your dreams. Veronica snorted arrogantly. Even if all the men in the world die, I will never marry you. That's a pity. Dustless spread out his hands. There was no intense emotional change. However, it is said that women are the most strange creatures. They don't care about what they get, but they cherish what they don't get. Even a noble princess is no exception. Looking at Dustless's calm appearance, Veronica angrily asked, What? Do you think I am not worthy of you? What the hell is wrong with your head? Hearing this, Dustless stared at Veronica like an idiot. Does this chick has amnesia? She just said that all the men in the world die before she would not marry him. And now she asked him if he was worthy of her? Just you wait. When you fall into my hands in the future, Veronica suppressed her anger. She picked up the towel and tore it apart madly, as if it was dustless. It has been more than 1,000 years, but I still don't understand women's minds. Dustless sighed. He really didn't know whether women were too fickle or he was too stupid. You can solve the rest by yourself. After washing Dustless's upper body, Veronica was about to run away. Wait, I didn't ask you to go. Dustless stopped Veronica and said, when you take a bath, you only wash the upper body. Don't you need to wash the legs and feet? Are you kidding me? Veronica felt that she was about to be driven crazy by Dustless. Men and women are different. If I help you wash there, how can I face others in the future? This guy is too unreasonable. I have said that I am training you. Only by abandoning the so-called shame can a person go further and walk a longer road. Dustless said righteously. Veronica scolded Dustless for being shameless in her heart. She was unwilling to do it. No matter how hard her arm was, it could not resist her thigh in the end. In desperation, Veronica could only come back with a sullen face. She squeezed some shower gel in her hand and helped Dustless wash his lower body with resentment. Be gentle. Dustless, who had closed his eyes, suddenly stared at her because Veronica touched his most important part. He suddenly scolded her angrily, this is second only to my life. If I break it, you can't afford to pay for it. It was not that Dustless was looking for trouble, but Veronica seemed to be deliberately using a lot of strength. This is the strength of this princess. Looking at Dustless's angry look, Veronica's pretty face had a beautiful smile. After fighting for so long, she could finally hold her head high for once. Is that so? Dustless wasn't angry. He chuckled and said, since that's the case, I'd better ask your sister to help me wash it. It's okay that your sister is clumsy. I reckon that Sylvia's methods are gentler. You bastard. Hearing Dustless's words, Veronica was about to jump up. She was so angry that she pointed at Dustless and scolded, how can you do this to a child? Are you shameless? Perverted scum. I think you misunderstood something. I just think that she is younger and weaker. Since you don't know how to do it, what's wrong with finding a younger one to replace you? Dustless defended himself with a glib tongue. After that, he stood up directly and walked to the exit without waiting for Veronica's reaction. Sit down. Thinking that Wu Chen was serious, Veronica roared, I'll just be a little gentler. I'm good at this kind of thing. When she said these words, Veronica's heart was bleeding. This shameless guy was too difficult to deal with. She was completely fooled by him. Chapter 13. I know I'm handsome, but I still feel embarrassed when you stare at me like that. Dustless deliberately made a bashful appearance, but Weaver Thousand Winters seemed to be made of iron. She didn't care at all. Her eyes were still fixed on the cheeks that were close at hand. She knew that her carelessness could lead to Summer of Weaving's crushing defeat. You're the ones who tricked me first, so I won't hold back anymore. Wu Chen looked at Yi Xia with a dim light in his eyes. His eyes blinked slightly. Bang! There was a muffled explosion, and Uchiha, who was flying in the air, was sent flying. It was as if he had been hit by something, and his body fell to the ground. Good chance. Cecilia was stunned for a moment, then opened fire. Countless bullets rained down from the void, all of them aimed at Summer of the Vega. What was that just now? I'm not sure. Was it a mechanical failure? It's possible. Didn't I tell you before that Summer of Weaving's white style is a defective product? The spectating students were puzzled. They couldn't figure out why Summer of Weaving was suddenly sent flying. Most of them thought that it was a mechanical failure. Empress Weaver naturally noticed this as well. She turned to stare at Empress Weaver with a gloomy expression. What was going on? Although the white style did have flaws, it was such a coincidence that an accident happened at this time. Vega Thousand Winter found it hard to accept. He looked at Wu Chen again. This guy was smiling with his eyes half squinted. He crossed his legs in a sloppy manner, and his expression was full of ridicule. You didn't do it, did you? Vega Thousand Winter stared at Dustless like she was interrogating a criminal. Huh? Dustless put on an innocent expression. You've been staring at me, haven't you? I didn't do anything. Seems like it. Vega Thousand Winter nodded thoughtfully, then snorted. Although she was worried, she didn't panic. Don't think you can beat Summer like this. Boom boom boom. A large number of missiles exploded around First Summer Weaver spot, and black smoke rose into the sky. Many students were extremely worried. Although this was a simulation, a duel was still a duel. Accidents could happen from time to time. What if, however, when the choking black smoke dissipated, everyone finally understood that their worries were unnecessary? Looking closely, Summer of the Weaving Patch had activated a protective barrier, isolating him from the sea of flames. He was safe and sound. You'll never be able to hurt me with something like that, Weaver Summer said in high spirits, as if he had already won. I didn't know there was such a thing. Looks like you guys have already upgraded the white form. You were just waiting for me to fall into your trap. Dustless glanced at Vega Thousand Winter out of the corner of his eye. No wonder she was so calm earlier. But, Dustless's eyes silently blinked again, and the sturdy barrier immediately began to emit cracking sounds. Why is this happening? Summer Spotted Weaver was dumbfounded. He stared blankly at the shattered barrier in front of him. One crack after another was clearly visible. Impossible. That kind of attack couldn't have broken the white form's defense. Vega Thousand Winter stood up, agitated. Her beautiful eyes widened, almost falling out of their sockets. She couldn't hide her shock. Heh. Facts speak louder than words. If you agree to a bet, you must accept your loss, little Thousand Winter. Dustless smiled wretchedly. A loss is a loss. Don't deny it. Oh, and don't forget your promise. It must have been you. Dustless remained silent. Vega Thousand Winter's cold gaze swept over him. You must have used some kind of trick, she said with great certainty. Catch the thief with the dirt. If there's evidence, I'm willing to admit my guilt. I'm a man of my word. Dustless blinked, then said righteously, if you find evidence of me cheating, do as you please. Boom boom boom. At the same time, Cecilia fired out a few more missiles, all of which exploded around Sasa Uchiha, and the cracked range shield was instantly torn apart. My hand. Amidst the gunfire, Summer of the Vega's scream could be heard. It sounded like he was in extreme pain. Still not admitting defeat? Does that kid want to die? Dustless's brows twitched. Through the thick black smoke, he could see Summer of the Weaving Patch's right hand was burning red. He has a reason why he can't lose. Vega Thousand Winter gritted her teeth. Ridiculous. Daring to trick me, that's how it's going to end. Dustless snorted, his face expressionless. He had no sympathy for Summer of the Weaving Patch. The kid usually looked naive and childish, but he was extremely cunning. He had deliberately let him see the white form. At that time, the white form looked ordinary. If they fought, Cecilia would have won. But that wasn't the case. The kid's white form had been secretly upgraded. It was all premeditated. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. Right at this moment, a sudden change occurred. A series of cannonballs rumbled from the distant horizon. An IS that had never been seen before barged into the simulation field. This is interesting. The troublemaker is here? Dustless's face turned cold as he stared at the incoming missiles. The target wasn't Cecilia or Summer of the Weaving Patch, it was himself. Buzz buzz buzz, Dustless's right foot suddenly glowed. He kicked out and a thick beam of light covered his right foot. Lightspeed kick. Chapter 14. It wasn't that Dustless was trying to scare her. The ball that Sylvia had obtained already strongly rejected her because she didn't have the talent to become a dragon nurturer. If she didn't communicate with it, there was no guarantee that something would go wrong. You're that kind? Veronica asked suspiciously. Don't tell me you really want my sister. If I have any ideas about her, none of you can stop me. You can just accept it silently. Dustless replied indifferently. Don't feel embarrassed. Being chosen by me is a gift. You should sing my name day and night. Hum. At the same time, Dustless's stomach suddenly burst with a dazzling light. Then, his stomach suddenly swelled and became strangely bigger. What is this? Veronica looked at Dustless in shock. It was like seeing a ghost. How did his stomach suddenly become so big? She looked at Dustless and saw that he was also shocked. Veronica couldn't help but tease, don't tell me, you're pregnant? Ha 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 ha. A man is actually pregnant. Nothing is funnier than this. Unbridled laughter filled the entire room. Veronica felt that all the resentment she had been suffering recently was vented in an instant. There was nothing more satisfying than this. Humph. At the same time, a cold voice rippled. Even though it was just a simple word, the large room instantly became cold. It was as if time and space had changed and the stars had moved. It was as if they had suddenly reached the South Pole. Perhaps this was what the saying, one thought to heaven, one thought to hell, meant. It's so cold. Veronica was so cold that she was shivering. She looked at Dustless, whose expression changed drastically in an instant. What do you want? Nothing. I just want to teach you a lesson. Dustless said indifferently. Then, he added, sometimes, even if it's a joke, when it comes to some sensitive issues, you have to stop before going too far. Do you understand? The simple sentence contained a supreme order. Veronica was so scared that she hurriedly led the way, indicating that she understood. This fiend really couldn't be messed with. One sentence could send people to hell and never come back from it. You can leave, Dustless said slowly. Veronica hurriedly nodded and left. Dustless in this state was indeed a bit terrifying. His body radiated a power that made people tremble. Perhaps this is his true nature. He can destroy the world with a wave of his hand. Veronica's fingertips pierced into the tender flesh of her palm, and the burning pain finally calming her down. In that split second, she had walked back and forth from the gates of hell. If not for his good attitude and timely admitting his mistake, perhaps he would have already been buried by Dustless at this moment. Hum, 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 hum. After Veronica left, a ball of light flew out from Dustless's body and floated up slowly. At the same time, Dustless's slightly bloated stomach returned to its original size. If Veronica said that she was pregnant again, it would be awkward. He was a man with dignity. It hatched so quickly. Looking at the floating object of light, Dustless's sharp senses picked up the scent of life. Dustless's own energy fluctuations were also emitted from it. Perhaps it was because it had swallowed his own energy to grow. Caw caw caw. Caw caw caw. Caw caw caw. On the surface of the cocoon, there was a slight cracking sound. Immediately after, a head of long pink hair pierced out from within. Caw caw caw. The cocoon of light was still trembling, but after dozens of seconds, there was no movement at all. It was quite strange. Bastard, what are you looking at? You're just a mere human. Hurry up and save your great master. The life force in the light cocoon couldn't come out no matter how hard it tried. Master? Dustless couldn't help but laugh. He said in annoyance and amusement, I've lived for thousands of years. You're the first one who dared to make me call you master. Humph, I came out of your body. If I'm not your master, then who am I? The arrogant voice sounded again. It ordered arrogantly, you're just a mere human. You should obey our great dragon clan. The girl in the light cocoon was obviously a pure racist. The dragon clan was supreme. If that's the case, then come out yourself, my master. Dustless replied in a strange tone. Then, he lazily closed his eyes. You. Audacious human. How dare you disobey the orders of your master? The life force in the light cocoon questioned angrily. Dustless didn't bother to respond. The moment he heard the voice, Dustless knew who it was. His heart was as clear as a mirror. It was almost exactly the same as Nobby's voice. The only difference was that it was slightly younger. Therefore, it was obvious who it was, Ike. It was Yaksu Blake's fall. However, he was now in Dustless's hands. Chapter 15. The night passed peacefully. The next morning, when Dustless went to class as usual, there was already a crowd outside the classroom. Out of curiosity, he walked over. After a few steps, he heard a thunderous roar. Kieran, you useless idiot. The ear-piercing roar could be heard from over 100 meters away. Wu Chen's face darkened. He knew it was Dotting Chi Lin's uncle from the voice alone. Calling his own niece an idiot in front of so many people, was this something that an elder could do? Useless trash. What's the point of teaming up with a brat like him? Koichiro spat while Kieran kept her head down. When he heard that Kota Kieran had decided to team up with Shasha Miyazaki for the Star Martial Arts Festival, Kota Koichiro was furious. If Shasha Miyazaki was one of the top 12, it would be fine, but Shasha Miyazaki was not on the list. Therefore, in his opinion, this was a stupid move. You incompetent little brat. Enraged, Koichiro raised his hand and looked at Kota Kieran as if she was his enemy. She closed her eyes in fear. You've got guts. An extremely cold voice came from the crowd. When it reached Koichiro's ears, he felt as if he was being stared at by the god of death. He immediately shuddered. Looking back, Kata Koichiro immediately saw Wu Chen. He snorted and said, I'm teaching my niece a lesson. What does that have to do with you? Your niece? Dustless sneered. Isn't it more appropriate to call her a prop? Kieran looked at Koichiro after hearing Dustless's words. Koichiro's face twitched. He didn't dare look at Kota Kieran in the eye. His gaze was erratic, giving off the feeling that he was guilty. Kirin, let's go. Kata Koichiro coldly snorted and turned to leave. But, Kirin, are you deaf? Kata Koichiro turned his head and saw the young lady standing there motionlessly. He immediately reprimanded, or do you want me to invite you? Hurry up and disappear before I get angry. Otherwise, I might throw you out. Dustless suddenly interrupted. Koichiro shuddered. He was sure that this bastard would do as he said. Don't you like to meddle in other people's business too much? Kata Koichiro's old face was so gloomy that water was about to drip out. Yeah, can you bite me? Dustless smiled and asked. Hearing this, Kota Koichiro was so angry that his face flushed red. The blood in his lungs rolled, and he almost spat out a mouthful of blood. Since he couldn't beat them, what could Kata Koichiro do? Helplessly, he could only leave in a huff. There are some things that you need to judge based on your own subjective will. You don't have to pursue success. You just need to have a clear conscience and make sure that you won't regret it in the future. Wuchen rubbed doubting Qi Lin's head and said slowly, go to class. Thank you. Kirin looked at Dustless gratefully. Otherwise, she would have slapped him again. It's nothing. Dustless smiled. He didn't care too much. A weak person like him wouldn't dare to take revenge even if he was given 100 guts. In a laboratory of the Alicante Research Institute, two young girls frowned as they stared at the scene on the screen, showing a cautious expression at the same time. Inesta, where did this new teacher come from? I've never heard of him before. Where did Claudia Enfield find such a strong person? A young girl with healthy wheat-colored skin and shoulder-length blonde hair asked. I'm not sure. I've never heard of him either. But that's not important. Camilla, did you notice that the energy that kid is using is very strange? It doesn't seem to be astral energy. The beautiful girl called Inesta's eyes glowed as she muttered, hee hee, interesting, interesting. These two people were Inesta and Camilla from the Alicante Research Institute. Both of them were inextricably linked to the hiring of Silas Norman. Looks like we'll have to adjust our mimicry to guard against this guy. If he participates in the Astral Warrior Festival, we'll lose miserably. Camilla was deep in thought. It's useless. Inesta shook her head. Do you think Aldi and Rimsey alone can beat that guy? Camilla said unhappily. She felt that Inesta was overconfident. That's not what I meant. Look at this data. Inesta suddenly pointed at the screen. A bunch of data appeared there. She explained solemnly, it's not that I don't want to modify it. Even if we take out the perfect material to create the mimicry, we still won't be able to resist that guy's attack. To put it simply, it wasn't that Inesta didn't want to modify it. The tragedy was that no matter how they modified it, it seemed that they couldn't resist the power of dustless void flash. The metal that they used as experimental materials couldn't withstand it at all. The video that was shown on the screen just now was the scene where Dustless used Void Flash to destroy Silas Norman's mechanical puppets. Ladies, Claudia from the Star Guide Academy is here. Someone suddenly reported outside the lab. The two girls rubbed their heads. Although they were sure that the fact that they sent someone to ambush the Star Guide Academy would be exposed sooner or later, it came too quickly. Especially when the target was Claudia, who was difficult to deal with and extremely cunning. P.S. 3,000 flowers plus updates, 3,000 rewards plus updates, 1,000 reviews plus updates, 500 automatic subscriptions plus updates. Chapter 16. You bastard, can't you change your conditions? Yu Shi and Hu Tao looked at each other. Looking at the pitiful state of you, they had the same opinion that they should never sign the so-called master-servant contract. It was too dangerous. If they had the slightest thought of disobeying Dustless, the curse would be activated. It was a cheat-like ability that could not be avoided. You don't want to sign the contract? That's fine too, but... Buzz buzz buzz. Dustless's fingertips emitted a destructive light as he aimed at Hu Tao's head. If I use this move, your sister's head will have a hole. Do you want to try? Little girl. You're so despicable. Yushi's cheeks twitched as she stared at Dustless furiously. Why didn't this guy have any morals and restraint as a strong person? He threatened her sister without saying anything. He was so shameless. What Dustless? Change his name to Shameless. It sounded more appropriate. I'll sign it. Yushi gritted her teeth and was forced to agree. What about you? Dustless's gaze then fell on Hu Tao's face. He pointed the light at Yushi and threatened with a smile, if you don't sign the contract, I won't make things difficult for you. However, I'll leave a big hole in your sister's beautiful face. The two sisters heard this and cursed in their hearts. This despicable and shameless bastard was too shameless. I promise you. Hu Tao had no choice but to compromise. She had no choice but to lower her head. The two sisters had no choice but to follow Dustless's lead. In the end, with Wan Lia's help, Hu Tao and Yushi signed the master-servant contract and became Dustless's servants. From then on, Dustless lived an extremely corrupt life. Time flew by and in the blink of an eye, it was evening. At this moment, Dustless was wearing pajamas and lying lazily on the sofa. His head was resting on Hu Tao's ample cleavage. As for Yushi, she was in charge of massaging his legs. Her technique was perfect as if she had received professional training. Her sister, Hu Tao, was peeling fruits and feeding them to Dustless one by one. The three ladies were so angry that they gritted their teeth, but they could not do anything. Dustless's orders were like the orders of God to them. If they disobeyed even the slightest thought, the evil curse would be activated and they would suffer unspeakable suffering. It seems like we have guests. Wu Chen's squinted eyes suddenly opened and looked out of the window. He clearly felt a strange aura quietly approaching, and the hiding technique was very sophisticated. At first glance, he knew it belonged to the type of powerhouse. Wan Lia, go and welcome the guests outside. Remember to be polite to the ladies. Dustless glanced at Wan Lia and then leisurely closed his eyes. As for Wan Lia, she looked at Dustless suspiciously. Someone was here? She did not notice it at all and then nodded silently. Who is it? Could it be? Hu Tao and Yushi looked at each other, their cheeks were filled with joy. Could it be that someone from the brave tribe had come to rescue them? Stop dreaming. No matter who it is, it can't be the hero tribe. Dustless bluntly attacked the two sisters and said coldly, that person should be a woman and she is extremely powerful. I don't think she is any weaker than Dong Qingsun. Does your brave tribe have someone like that? Hearing this, Hu Tao and Yushi were greatly disappointed. Their beautiful eyes were replaced by despair. That's not right. How did you know it was a woman? Zhao looked at Dustless in confusion. This guy had been training them the whole afternoon and did not go out. How did he know that the person who ambushed them was a woman? Humph, a group of little kids, you won't understand even if I tell you. It has something to do with personal experience. Dustless said very confidently, looking at the ceiling comfortably, I have been in contact with too many women in my life, more than the number of meals you have eaten, understand? I can tell a man or a woman just by intuition. You only know how to brag. Hu Tao snorted lightly, expressing 100% disbelief. Hearing this, Dustless smiled. He was fooling the three women, but the person who came was indeed a woman. Although observation hockey can't distinguish the appearance of a human, the difference between the figure of a man and a woman can still be felt. This person is a woman, and through the perception of observation hockey, Dustless also knows that her chest is very big, even bigger than Nere's Koto's. She is strong and has a good figure. It shouldn't be her, right? In Dustless's mind, a beautiful woman wearing glasses and a white coat immediately popped up. Creak. Outside the bedroom, suddenly there was the sound of high-heeled shoes twisting. Dustless, Hu Tao, Yuki, and Yuki all looked over. When they saw the person who came, both Yuki and Yuki were stunned and immediately exclaimed, Hasegawa-sensei? The person who was brought in by Wan Lia is the healthcare teacher of Yuki and Yuki's school, Hasegawa. Sure enough, it's her. Is she here for revenge? Dustless's eyes flashed and he closed his eyes again leisurely. I thought you would come in directly, but I didn't expect you to be so polite. Since you are not here to fight, sit down by yourself. Hasegawa's beautiful eyes looked at Dustless, seeing this guy holding left and right, living a G-O-D-like life, and said indifferently, more lustful and frivolous than I thought, you are really a pervert. Hee hee. Lustful? Hearing this, Dustless laughed. Although he signed the master-servant contract, he didn't force the women to do anything excessive. How can he be related to perverts? Who are you here for? Dongqing Sun? Or Yuki and Yuki? Dustless asked and didn't hide it, saying bluntly, if it's for Dongqing Sun, then I'm sorry, that kid is dead. If it's for Yuki and Yuki, I'm very sorry, they are now my servants. As soon as his voice fell, Dustless felt an amazing hostility locked on him. Looking at the source, Hasegawa's beautiful eyes exuded a substantial chill, like a long knife stabbing at him. There was a light floating behind Hasegawa, and the terrible magic could even distort time and space. Even if there was no magic leakage, the whole house had begun to creak and could collapse at any time. So strong. Yuki and Yuki's faces changed greatly, looking at Hasegawa in fear. This female sensei, who had always been gentle, was definitely a ruthless character. Under the deterrence of this momentum, they felt that they could die at any time, as if there was a dangerous knife hanging on their necks, which could end them at any time. Only Dustless was unmoved. He looked at Hasegawa for a moment with no expression, and his dark eyes exuded an ominous feeling. The so-called god is only at this level? If you continue to behave atrociously, then I really can't forgive you. Then, Dustless broke out a more oppressive momentum, like a tsunami rushing to Hasegawa. Pucci, Hasegawa's face changed greatly. The moment she was covered by the supreme majesty, her internal organs trembled, almost crushing her. She couldn't help but spit out a mouthful of blood, and her face was as pale as paper. Chapter 17. What do you mean? Just say it. Ulysses frowned. She could feel that Dustless was implying something. Since this guy pointed out their weakness, he should be able to come up with a feasible solution. It's very simple. Your usage of Star Force is too simple. It can be expanded. Of course, it's not just you, the whole world is the same. Dustless's words stunned the three girls. Isn't the so-called Star Force used for combat? What's the use of it? Wang, at the same time, a wisp of golden light emerged from Wu Chen's fingertips. It was like liquid gold, and it was swimming around his fingertips. What is this? It doesn't look like Star Force. The three women exclaimed in unison. They looked at Wu Chen with eyes full of flowing lights. This guy was far more amazing than they had imagined. What they saw before was just the tip of the iceberg. This is chakra. Dustless said honestly. He looked at the three girls and slowly explained. Of course, you can also think of it as your own Star Force. Anyway, it has the same effect. Do you know that chakra has many uses? In addition to using ninjutsu, it can also stimulate the body and stimulate the cell activation. Your defense and speed will be greatly improved. The three girls were not stupid. Their eyes suddenly lit up. Dustless Sensei is saying that Star Force can be used in this way. Among the three of them, the most excited one was Dotting Qilin because she was the most embarrassed one. She didn't have her own Huang family armament and she had to rely on her excellent swordsmanship to win the battle. Her future achievements were pitiful. What Wu Chen said just now was equivalent to pointing out a great path to heaven for her. But can our Star Force really train the body like your chakra? Shasha Miyazaki looked at Dustless suspiciously. She felt that it was strange and unbelievable. Using the power of the stars to activate cells was something that had never been heard of before. It could be considered a fantasy. Of course. Dustless nodded. What he just said was actually the fourth Reikage chakra mode. It wasn't groundless. No matter what kind of energy it is, there are many ways of using it that can be expanded. After saying that, Dustless's body emitted a blue light that twirled around his fingertips. The ocean-like color was dreamy and illusory. This is spiritual pressure. It can also train the body's cells, Dustless explained. These words made the three women happy. They looked at each other and the joy in their eyes was clearly visible. They looked at the person in front of them and felt that he was as unfathomable as the sea. They had to admit that Dustless had opened a brand new door for them. Alright, you guys can go back and figure it out yourselves. That's all I can say. Dustless waved his hand and ordered them to leave. He didn't have anything like star power, so he could only enlighten the three of them. Qilin, stay. Dustless added. Her. Yulis and Shasha Gong Shayi had a strange look on their faces. They exchanged glances with each other. Could it be that the two of them had an affair? I want to stay too. Yulis said stubbornly. Dustless rolled his eyes and asked snappily, You're staying? What's the matter? Can't I? Aren't you our teacher? If you want to teach, you should teach us together. Do you want to keep it to yourself? Yulis looked at Dustless with burning eyes. Shasha Gong Shayi also nodded lightly, as if she was determined to follow him. You two are really long-winded. Dustless didn't bother with the two and directly said to Kirin, Don't worry about them. Come with me. Dustless promised to teach Kirin personally, so he wouldn't lie to him. I'm sorry, two senpais. Doubting Qilin bowed slightly to the two and then followed Dustless. These two bastards. Yulis stomped her foot angrily. She looked at the two leaving and felt inexplicably unhappy. All this time, Yulis had naively thought that Dustless cared about her. After all, he had saved her time and time again, so she had developed an indescribable dependence on Dustless. But today, she realized that in Dustless's heart, she was just an ordinary student. There was no difference. It was Wu Chen's duty to save Yulis in the past. After all, as her mentor, Wu Chen couldn't just watch as his student was killed. Then, Senpai Dustless, won't the two senpais be angry? Kirin, who was weak and kind, asked worriedly. Angry? You think too much. That kid wanted to kill me before. Dustless shook his head indifferently. There was nothing between them. It was just an ordinary teacher-student relationship. Dustless then said to Kirin, Show me your swordsmanship. Treat me as an enemy and attack me with all your might. After hearing Dustless's words, Kirin naturally didn't hold back. She unsheathed her tachi and attacked with an extremely tricky swordsmanship. Sky Mist Rindu had quietly left the Star Guide Academy. Who wants to see me? I don't know anyone. Sky Mist Rhine's soul was wearing a thick robe, revealing only his face. His face was filled with endless doubt. He was sitting alone in a quiet coffee shop. He was surrounded by unfamiliar faces, and he didn't recognize any of them. Just yesterday, Sky Mist Rindu suddenly received a letter. There was no signature, only an invitation to meet him. At first, Sky Mist Rindu wanted to refuse, but in the end, the letter said, If you want to know about your sister, Sky Mist Rindu. Sky Mist Rindu's heart was hooked by this sentence. That was why he sneaked out to meet the letter. I didn't expect you to be so punctual. A calm voice suddenly resounded in Sky Mist Rindu's ears. This voice was extremely calm, as if it had already expected that Sky Mist Rindu would show up. The voice was very calm and relaxed. P.S. 3,000 flowers plus updates, 3,000 rewards plus updates, 1,000 comments plus updates, 500 automatic subscriptions plus updates. Chapter 18. Ha ha ha. That incestuous woman is finished this time. You won't go easy on her, right? Stacy laughed exaggeratedly while holding her stomach. She rolled around beside Dustless without a care for her image. Of course. Dustless answered with certainty. They were unrelated, so why would he go easy on her? Hee hee. When the time comes, you must do your best and teach that incestuous woman a lesson for me. Stacy winked at Dustless. She didn't even need to be told to massage Dustless's feet to relax. It wasn't hard to see that Stacy had a lot of resentment towards Black Iron Pearl. Are you hungry? Do you need this princess to personally cook some delicious food for you as a reward? Stacy's beautiful eyes flickered with a strange luster. Her delicate face was almost touching Dustless's face. A princess cooking for me, I really can't afford it. You don't have to be nosy. Go do what you need to do. I need to rest. Dustless waved his hand and ordered Stacy to leave. Then have a good rest. When night comes, this princess will let you taste my cooking. Stacy skipped away like a happy elf. She's really hopeless. Looking at the girl leaving, Dustless opened his eyes. Just as he was about to fall asleep, his phone rang. Dustless couldn't help but look at it. It was a text message from the chairman. The content was very simple, asking to meet him. That woman. We just met. Why is she looking for me again? After complaining, Dustless put on his clothes, jumped out of the window, and went straight to the chairman's office. At this moment, there was a middle-aged man in a suit in the chairman's office. This person looked old-fashioned. His facial features were similar to Black Iron Pearl, but his temperament was much more mature. Just by sitting there, he didn't need to release his aura to make people feel a heavy pressure. This kind of person, at first glance, had been trained in a high position for a long time. He had a powerful aura. It was certain that this person was either rich or noble. Creak, the office door was gently pushed open, and Dustless walked in. He couldn't help but frown. Didn't that woman ask me to meet her? But he himself disappeared. Dustless was about to turn around and leave when the middle-aged man sitting on the sofa opened his mouth. Young man, are you going to ignore me? His voice was as calm as an ancient well, devoid of any emotion. Young man? Dustless glanced at this person from the corner of his eyes. After examining him for a moment, he said coldly, no matter who you are, watch your tone. Wu Chen's real age was more than enough to be his ancestor. Sure enough, it's just as the chairman of Shingong Temple said. You're unruly. Although you look frivolous on the surface, you're actually more arrogant than anyone else. The man in the suit on the sofa did not get angry. He introduced himself politely, my name is Eben Yen. I'm Eben Yan's father. I heard that you had some conflict with Eben Yen. Sorry. Hearing this, Dustless's expression eased a little. He asked directly, did you ask the chairman to call me here? We don't seem to know each other, and to some extent, we're quasi-enemies. After all, Dustless didn't have a good relationship with Eben Yen and Ebony Hui. You're exaggerating. There's no such thing as an enemy. Eben Yen smiled and said rather gently, I heard that your opponent tomorrow is Eben Yen? That's right. Dustless nodded and then added, if you want me to lose to her, then forget it. Hei Tian's expression froze. He took a deep breath and said, to tell you the truth, I've always thought highly of Zhu Xian. If you eliminate her in the first round, wouldn't that mean that you can't accept it? Our Eben family is a famous family in Japan. If people know about it, we'll lose face. If you want to blame someone, you can only blame her bad luck. Dustless said coldly. He had already understood Eben Yan's intention. He probably wanted him to go easy on Eben Yan. It was a beautiful idea, but it was absolutely impossible. Because once Dustless went easy on Eben Yan, it meant that he would lose. Although Dustless didn't care about the final result, he wanted to crush Ebony Hui's dignity in front of everyone. How could he lose to Eben Yan? Absolutely not. I heard that you seem to have a grudge against Ihui. Eben Yen looked at Dustless with burning eyes and suggested, I have a suggestion. Why don't you listen to it? I can use my power to make Ihui lose face and even be kicked out of this school. The premise is that you have to lose to Eben Yen and let her participate in the Seven Stars Sword Dance Festival as the representative of Shattering Military Academy. Eben Yan's eyes were shining with a strange light, like the bright moon. It seemed that he was sure that Dustless would agree. Are you serious? Dustless stared straight at Eben Yen. His tone was emotionless. Of course, I'm serious. Why don't I tell you directly? I've been making things difficult for Ihue to graduate, but that kid's temper is too stubborn. He won't listen to me. Eben Yen said helplessly. Although your conditions are very attractive, my answer is, stop dreaming. Dustless squeezed out a sneer and said disdainfully, you think that without you, I can't make him lose face? Hilarious. Do I need to cooperate with someone like you? After that, Dustless left, leaving Eben Yen with a pale face. He clenched his fists. He didn't expect that Dustless would reject such a generous offer. Chapter 19. Where's that demon? Dustless asked Kanna. You're willing to help me take care of it? Kanna had an excited expression before she said in a troubled manner, I don't know, but every time I sleep, he'll appear. How about I. Kanna's face was currently red as she stuttered, as if she had something difficult to say. She was also embarrassed. If you have something to say, just say it, Dustless said in an extremely magnanimous manner. How about I sleep at your place tonight? Or, how about you sleep at my place? That way, you might be able to see that mirror demon. Kanna lowered her head in embarrassment after saying this. It was quite difficult for a girl to make such a request. I hope you can understand. I had no other choice. Not only did that demon keep harassing me, he even threatened my parents and caused them to be hospitalized. I can't forgive him for that. Kanna raised her head and looked resolutely at Dustless. Her eyes were shining brightly. Even if she knew that she was dancing with the devil, she was still willing to give it a try. Your courage is commendable. You clearly know that we're all demons, yet you still dared to make such a request. Aren't you afraid that you're inviting a wolf into your home? No, you're currently in a wolf's den. We're all demons. Dustless revealed his 10 black tails right after he finished speaking. His tails were swaying eerily like pythons, causing Kanna to uncontrollably shiver. I know, but I have no other choice. Kanna chuckled wryly as she explained, the reason why I believe in you is because Nuliang-san saved me once when I was young. Ever since then, I've felt that there really are demons in this world, but there are also good and bad demons. Just like humans, if there are bad demons, there will also be good demons. There are also good demons and bad demons. In other words, you're treating us as good demons? Since that's what you think, I'll be a good demon as well. Why don't you sleep at my place tonight? If that mirror demon really does appear, I'll destroy him. Dustless's eyes flashed coldly. Thank you for your generosity. Hearing this, Parent Kanna repeatedly bowed to Dustless in thanks. She didn't need anyone else to be polite. She walked over to the bedroom next to the cherry blossom tree. After entering the room, the young girl looked around like a curious baby. She even calmly picked up some pastries in the room and began to eat them. These were all made by the Snow Maidens, and they were extremely delicious. Are all humans so bold these days? It's fine if she's not afraid when she's in a monster's house, but she's even eating that thing casually. Isn't she afraid that it's a pastry made from human brains? Dustless commented in confusion. He carefully observed Kanna's expression, which was natural and casual. She didn't seem afraid at all. Didn't she just say that she's treating us like good demons? This human girl is truly a strange one. The hairy prostitute blinked her beautiful eyes as she looked at Kanna's parents with interest. I hope it won't be too boring tonight. Dustless once again laid down on prostitute Mao's jade-like legs. It was still early, so he decided to take a nap. It's been so long. Why hasn't she come out yet? A petite girl had an anxious expression as she paced back and forth in front of Nuliang Group's main entrance. She was none other than Yuro Hanacoin. After learning of Lu Xiong Nuliang's identity, she had been secretly observing Nuliang Group. In the process of doing so, she coincidentally saw Kanna enter Nuliang Group. She directly entered Nuliang Group, and Yuro Hanacoin didn't even have a chance to stop her. That was because Nuliang Group was nearby. If Euro Hanacoin stood up at this time, the demons in Nuliang group would know that someone was watching them, and she would be implicated. That was why Euro Hanacoin could only watch as Kanna entered Nuliang group. I'll sneak in when it's dark. Euro Hanacoin secretly decided that Nuliang group was heavily guarded right now. Sneaking in would be suicide. The wait was incredibly long. Euro Hanacoin snuck into Nuliang group before it was even dark. She went door to door to search for Kanna's whereabouts. Could she have been eaten by one of those crazy demons? After searching for more than 1.5 hours, Euro Hanacoin was gradually getting impatient. She had searched most of the rooms, but there was no one there. There's only one room left. Euro Hanacoin was rather absent-minded as she looked at the closed sliding door next to the cherry blossom tree. She was quite familiar with that place. Last time, she met Dustless here. However, Euro Hanacoin found it difficult to accept that this gentleman who sometimes seemed like a scholar was actually a demon. It was highly likely that he was a high-level member of Nuliang group. Let's go take a look, Euro Hanacoin quietly approached with light steps. She was as light as a dragonfly skimming the surface of the water, making it difficult for anyone to notice her. Asterisk knock knock knock. Asterisk Euro Hanacoin lightly knocked on the sliding door a few times. After more than 10 seconds of silence, she smiled faintly and thought to herself, very good, there's no one here. Asterisk whoosh. Asterisk Euro Hanacoin didn't even think about it as she directly opened the sliding door. However, the scene that greeted her stunned her. This is... What exactly are you guys doing? Euro Hanacoin looked around and saw that Dustless was leaning over the table and drinking tea. Kanna was sleeping right next to him. Her sleeping face was incredibly sweet and cute. What shocked Euro the most was that Kanna was even snoring, and there was even saliva dripping out of her mouth. Euro Hanacoin's worldview was instantly destroyed. Is this still the dignified and beautiful Kanna from before? There's a powerful demon right next to you. You're sleeping so soundly that you don't even know if you're going to be eaten. Euro, don't make such an exaggerated expression. The night is still young. Come sit down and drink some tea with me. Dustless pointed at the seat across from him and smiled faintly. His expression was calm, as if he was looking at one of his own. Chapter 20. The raging fire in the center of the arena was unstoppable. It filled the entire arena, including Black Iron Centipede. Damn it, damn it, damn it, Black Iron Centipede kept cursing. She tried to use ice magic to force the fire away, but the temperature was too high. The water that leaked out of her body evaporated immediately. You lost. Wu Chen's emotionless voice resounded through the audience. He said faintly, your nickname is Deep Sea Witch. Most of the moves you use are water. You have no chance of winning in front of this flame. Dustless's tone was as cold as a death sentence. Black Iron Centipede's pretty face turned pale. Water could suppress fire, but fire could also suppress water. Dustless's fire skills were obviously better, and Black Iron Centipede was suppressed. I admit defeat. Black Iron Centipede gritted her teeth and admitted defeat reluctantly. She had no choice but to admit defeat. The fire around her was like a cage. Black Iron Centipede couldn't move an inch, and her water moves would be evaporated immediately. So boring. After the referee announced the winner, Dustless left alone. The next match was between Eben and Kurihara Shizuki, but it seemed that he would have to wait until the afternoon. Dustless wasn't interested in watching. It would probably be like the original work. Eben would be beaten up, and then Kurihara Shizuki would be killed. There was no one in the hallway of the dorm. Dustless put his hands behind his head and hummed along the way. Tap, 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 a figure tailed behind Dustless like a thief, hiding here and there. He had been following him closely. Strange, where is he? After turning a corner, the girl couldn't help but look around. To her surprise, Dustless had disappeared from the face of the earth. Are you following me? The space beside the girl twisted, and Dustless mysteriously appeared. Are you a human or a ghost? The girl was so scared that she kept backing away. Dustless's strange appearance really gave her a shock. If you're a ghost, then you're dead. Dustless replied indifferently. He stared at the girl's fair face and asked, You're Ice, right? You know me? The girl's eyes widened slightly. No, I don't. Dustless simply responded, and then said bluntly, But, there are only two kinds of people who follow me. They either want to kill me, or they have something to ask of me. You should belong to the second kind, right? Ice's lips twitched when she heard this. Flames of anger flickered in her eyes. She gritted her teeth and suddenly knelt down. I hope you can help me. I am willing to give up everything for this. Why don't you get up first? A girl suddenly kneeling down. People might think I'm a bully. Dustless patted Ice's shoulder, and she slowly stood up. In fact, even if Ice didn't say anything, Dustless knew her motive. He asked, You want me to increase your strength, right? To be honest, I do have a way to increase your strength, but it won't do you any good. You're a genius in the way of the sword. As long as you practice diligently, you'll surpass your enemies sooner or later. But I can't wait anymore. Ice's face was full of despair. I want to stand out in this competition, but I can't do it with my strength. But I have no obligation to help you. Dustless shook his head and refused. He wasn't a bodhisattva. Ice was speechless. There was no such thing as a free lunch in the sky. She didn't have any power or influence, so there was nothing she could do with Dustless. I'll be yours from now on. As if she was really forced to a dead end, Ice's face was red as she threw caution to the wind. She nervously said, I'll promise you anything, including those perverted things. Perverted things? Do I look like the kind of person who can't satisfy his desires? Dustless touched his cheeks. His skin was white and lustrous, and he looked like a god. He didn't look like a perverted uncle at all. He immediately rolled his eyes and lightly scratched the girl's nose. Dustless knew about Ice's situation. In order to protect her father's foundation, she was really going all out. She didn't even hesitate to dance with the devil. It's not as hard as you think. I'll give you a discount. You just have to do one thing for me. Dustless waved at Ice. The girl immediately leaned her ear closer. That's simple. After a while, Ice looked at Dustless in surprise. Simple? You're too naive. Don't just look at the surface of things. Dustless shook his finger and reminded her with a serious expression, remember, don't get caught. Otherwise, you might lose your life. Okay, you can go now. Remember to be careful. Dustless waved his hand. Ice left quietly. This girl is really naive. Isn't she afraid that I'm tricking her? Dustless looked at the departing Ice in a daze. He then went back to rest. It was almost evening. Dustless woke up from his deep sleep. His stomach was growling and there were no snacks in the fridge. Winner, Kurihara Shizumi. The sudden announcement spread to every corner of the school. Dustless, who was about to go to the cafeteria to eat, was stunned. Damn, is there something wrong with my ears this time? Kurihara Shizumi, that brat, won? That's not right. I remember that Ebonichiro won. Dustless looked in the direction of the arena. He immediately turned into a beam of light and rushed over. He clearly remembered that in the original story, Ebonichiro was beaten up violently. Later, his small universe erupted and he successfully counterattacked and defeated Kurihara Shizumi. But this time, with this kind of change, Dustless was wondering if he should go and finish him off. After all, that brat lost. He wouldn't meet him in the next match. When he arrived at the arena, Dustless looked at the center of the arena. There was a bloody corpse lying there. It was Ebonichiro. Dustless quickly spread his observation haki. After a while, he frowned. This brat's heartbeat was already gone. F***ck, I let you live because I wanted to ruin your reputation and then kill you. Now, you're dead in advance? Dustless was on the verge of exploding. Looking at Kurihara Shizuki, who was flaunting his prowess in the field, he couldn't wait to give him a few slaps. P.S. 3,000 flowers plus updates, 3,000 rewards plus updates, 1,000 comments plus updates, 500 automatic subscriptions plus updates. You're tuning in to the Journey of the Soul YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.